What if I told you that one of Hollywood's most rugged leading men, an icon of masculinity and charm, harbored secrets so explosive they could rewrite everything you thought you knew about Hollywood Golden Age? At the age of 80, the legendary Burt Lancaster finally broke his silence, revealing private truths he'd buried for decades. Behind the camera flashes and red carpets were stories of forbidden love, intense passion, and hidden affairs with some of the most famous gay stars of his era. Secrets he kept tucked away in the shadows of fame. This isn't your typical tale from Tinseltown. Today, we'll dive into the life of a man who became a silver screen icon, but lived a much more complicated life behind it. We'll explore the roles that made him a legend, and the secrets the industry hoped would never come out. Before he became a legend, Burt Lancaster was just a kid from East Harlem with a dream. So how did he rise to become one of Hollywood's most magnetic icons? Let's roll back the years and uncover the incredible beginning of his story. Back on November 2nd, 1913, a boy named Burton Stephen Lancaster entered the world in Harlem, New York City. Growing up in a blue-collar household, young Burt learned about hardship from the very beginning. Life in early 20th century Harlem was no walk in the park. It was energetic, overcrowded, and full of families doing whatever it took to survive. Though his parents worked themselves to the bone, money was tight in the Lancaster home. Still, despite their own struggles, they always told their children to dream beyond the horizon. From the start, it was clear Burt wasn't cut from the same cloth as everyone else around him. Even as a boy, he carried extraordinary strength and a fire inside him that couldn't be ignored. Rather than excel in books and school, he threw himself into sports and performance arts. Picture this, a towering, athletic teenager dazzling crowds with gravity-defying acrobatics. In those early days, Burt performed in traveling circus acts, mastering control over his body and fear. This wasn't just a physical transformation, it was a spiritual and artistic one. It was under the big top that he discovered how to thrill an audience, a skill he'd use on screen for decades. More than just building muscles, those circus years taught him how to own every inch of a stage. His style became instantly recognizable in Hollywood, energetic, raw, and dangerously captivating. And soon, Lancaster wasn't merely an actor in the frame, he was the force driving the scene. His cinematic journey officially kicked off in the 1940s, when Hollywood took notice of his unique magnetism. With his tall frame, angular jawline, and eyes that could pierce a screen, he was every director's dream. But looks weren't enough for Burt. He was determined to be respected for his acting chops. That breakthrough came in 1946 when he starred in The Killers, a film noir adapted from Hemingway. In it, he portrayed the doomed Swede Anderson, a boxer whose tragic story stole hearts and headlines. This role didn't just make him a star, it proved he could dig deep into layered, tortured characters. The Killers wasn't just a debut, it was Burt planting his flag in the world of serious acting. He made it clear from that point on, he wouldn't settle for being another Hollywood heartthrob. Burt wanted grit, gravity, and a place among the greats, and he wasn't afraid to fight for it. Driven by a deeper calling, he sought to unravel the minds of his characters and bring powerful stories to life. The performance turned heads across the industry, earning him serious attention. Suddenly, people began to see him as a rising icon in Hollywood. Here was a man who blended strength with emotional depth in a way few others could. Still, Burt refused to settle or coast on success. To leave a legacy that mattered, he realized he needed full creative control. In a bold move during the 1950s, Burt stepped into uncharted territory. Together with two close collaborators, Harold Heck and James Hill, he launched Hector Hill Lancaster Productions. This wasn't just a clever career move, it was a radical shift in the system. At that time, big players like MGM and Warner Brothers ran the entire show. From choosing scripts to distributing films, actors had almost no control over their professional paths. But Burt flat out rejected that powerless existence. He craved the ability to pursue meaningful projects on his own terms. He envisioned films that provoked thought and stirred the soul, not just mindless entertainment. Through his company, he brought to life a series of impactful and memorable films. Among the most successful was Marty, released in 1955. The movie followed a modest storyline about love and loneliness in an ordinary man's life. Without explosions or star-studded casts, Marty moved viewers with its sincerity. When it won the Best Picture Oscar, it was a triumph of substance over spectacle. That win wasn't just for the film, it was a testament to Burt's creative vision. He demonstrated that even the quietest stories could echo loudly. Another standout from his company came in 1958 with Separate Tables. This film dove into emotional depth, portraying fragile connections shaped by social expectations. Thanks to a brilliant ensemble and poignant writing, the film received critical acclaim. It further cemented Burt's status as more than an actor. He was a producer with purpose. More than performing, he embraced the role of cinema's thoughtful disruptor. For those who ask which role captures the essence of Burt Lancaster, it has to be Sergeant Milton Warden in From Here to Eternity. 1953. Set in the tense days before Pearl Harbor, the film combined romance, duty, and emotional tension. As a hardened soldier with inner struggles, Burt played opposite Deborah Kerr's Karen Holmes in an unforgettable romance. Their passionate beach kiss, with waves crashing around them, became an immortal piece of film history. You could almost taste the tension and passion in that scene, couldn't you? The spark between them transcended the screen and gripped the audience. Though not romantically involved in real life, they captured lightning in a bottle. That film's success wasn't just financial, it swept the Oscars, taking home 8 awards including Best Picture. It also showcased Burt's rare gift for channeling raw, powerful emotion. He kept surprising audiences with performance after performance that left lasting impressions. His crowning moment came in 1960, when he earned his first Academy Award for Elmer Gantry. In it, he embodied a charming yet troubled former convict, charisma mixed with menace. The character's moral contradictions made it impossible to turn away. With every role he embraced, Burt brought a vibrant intensity, displaying a remarkable ability to embody layered characters. Only 2 years afterward, he secured his second Academy Award for his performance in Birdman of Alcatraz, 1962. Taking on the role of Robert Stroud, Burt portrayed a convict-turned-bird expert and advocate for prison reform. Through this character, he unveiled a more emotional, thoughtful side, proving he could express gentleness amid gritty realism. His approach wasn't merely performance, it was full immersion into every persona he portrayed. What he delivered wasn't just acting success, it was proof of his daring choices. He refused to recycle familiar roles, opting instead for broken, scarred characters who nonetheless found redemption. And because of this courage and storytelling, the audience embraced him fully. People didn't just watch a film star, they felt a reflection of their own humanity in his performances. Despite the shifting landscape of Hollywood, Burt remained creatively restless and bold in his choices. He appeared in The Swimmer, 1968, a symbolic psychological journey, and in Atlantic City, 1980, where he earned another Oscar nod for playing a fading but spirited gambler. These performances reflected an artist who never stopped evolving, always hunting for the next compelling narrative. But there was more to Burt Lancaster than his screen legacy. His convictions ran just as deep. In a time when many entertainers stayed apolitical, Burt used his platform to challenge injustice. He passionately supported civil rights and became an outspoken advocate for change and equality. Art to him wasn't just storytelling. It was a tool for impact and awareness. One of the most powerful illustrations of this was when he and his wife, Norma Anderson, opened their home to support Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. ahead of the pivotal 1963 March on Washington. This moment didn't just reveal his bravery, it confirmed his readiness to take a stand, even when it ruffled feathers. He also spoke up for creators behind the scenes, supporting unions and artist protections in an industry that often overlooked them. Let's now turn to the man behind the camera, the private life that was just as rich as his work on screen. Burt experienced love multiple times, marrying 3 women and becoming a father to 5 children. His first wife, June Ernst, was no stranger to performance. She dazzled as a gifted trapeze artist. They crossed paths in the vibrant, daring world of circus performance, bonding through their shared athletic passion. June wasn't someone you'd easily forget. Her circus roots ran deep, and her mother was a legendary acrobat known across the country. Together, Burt and June shared the spotlight, their romance strengthened by the thrills of performing together. But that lifestyle, full of highs and risks, came with its share of challenges and instability. Endless travel, financial stress, and the brutal pace of show business slowly wore down their relationship. They went their separate ways sometime before the 1940s ended, though no one seems to agree on the exact year, with reports ranging between 1940 and 1946. This lingering uncertainty continues to cloud the details of Burt's personal history. Not long after the breakup with June, Burt tied the knot with Norma Anderson, a fiery woman deeply committed to social reform. Their paths first crossed during the global turmoil of World War II, when Norma, originally working a desk job, was asked to step in for a sick singer during a USO event in Italy. As she made her way from the airport one afternoon, Norma spotted Burt standing confidently in a sea of soldiers and couldn't take her eyes off him. She leaned toward an officer nearby and inquired, "Who's that striking officer, and is he spoken for?" That curious question led the officer, acting like fate's middleman, to set up a date for them that very night. That single evening launched a love story that would endure for more than 20 years. They married in 1946, eventually welcoming 5 children into their home: Bill, James, Susan, Joanna, and Siegel, better known as Sheila. Norma was far more than a traditional spouse. She was a dedicated campaigner who threw herself into the work of organizations like the NAACP and the League of Women Voters. Their house in Bear even featured a special space filled with advocacy tools and printing gear, where Norma worked day and night for civil liberties. Together, Burt and Norma made their voices heard, hosting events like a fundraising evening for Martin Luther King Jr. Yet even with their shared beliefs and activism, their relationship wasn't without turbulence. The demands of Burt's movie career, extended absences, the pressure of fame, and private battles ultimately drove them apart. They separated in 1966 and officially divorced in 1969. It was during this emotionally rocky period that Burt entered into a passionate yet stormy affair with Jackie Bone, a hairdresser he met on the set of The Professionals. Their relationship burned brightly, but came with its own share of chaos. A notorious story tells of Jackie smashing a wine bottle over Burt's head at a glamorous Hollywood gathering with stars like Peter Falk and Sidney Pollack in attendance. Though it made the gossip rounds, the incident exposed the raw, explosive nature of their romance. Eventually, things fell apart when Jackie experienced a powerful religious awakening. Because of his personal spiritual beliefs, Burt found himself unable to follow her down that new road, and their relationship came to a natural end. Later in life, Burt entered into his third and final marriage with Susan Martin in 1990. Unlike his previous unions, this one offered peace and stability. As his health began to decline, after years of battling heart problems, Susan remained steadfastly by his side. They led a quiet life, away from the limelight. And in Susan, Burt found solace as his journey neared its conclusion. On October 20th, 1994, after suffering yet another heart attack, Burt passed away peacefully at his Century City apartment in Los Angeles. He left the world at the age of 80 with an unforgettable career and a deeply human story trailing behind him. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Something Burt only dared to share in his final chapter. In moments of deep contemplation, Burt confessed to close companions about secret loves he'd hidden throughout his life. Back when Hollywood was ruled by image and fear, being gay wasn't just controversial, it could end a career overnight. Audiences, reporters, and powerful studios all worked hard to maintain an illusion, one that left little room for truth. Though the world never fully knew, Burt carried his truth quietly and boldly, hidden beneath the surface. He later disclosed that he had intimate connections with several renowned men of his generation. These revelations stunned many, not just for who they involved, but because they unveiled an unseen layer of Burt's deeply emotional life. He was a man who embraced love without limits, even if it meant concealing it behind closed doors. The first story revolves around none other than Cary Grant, a man of silver screen charm. Their paths crossed in the late 40s during a glamorous Hollywood gathering. Cary's elegant confidence, alluring charm, and subtle mystery drew Burt in completely. What followed was a passionate yet hidden romance, nurtured in secluded homes along the California coast. In those stolen hours, they experienced something rare: freedom without judgment. Still, Carrie, constantly haunted by the fear of scandal, chose reputation over connection. Despite its brevity, Burt confessed that their affair etched itself into his soul forever. To him, Carrie was not only a romantic memory, but also a tragic example of love restrained by fear. What came next was even more unexpected. J. Edgar Hoover, the formidable FBI chief. Although far from the spotlight of actors, Hoover held immense power over Tinseltown. Their acquaintance began at an exclusive charity gala in Washington, where influence and fame collided. The bond that formed wasn't born of desire, but of unspoken loneliness wrapped in secrecy. Their connection couldn't be labeled romantic, yet it held emotional intensity born of hidden needs. Burt later described Hoover as a man who longed for human warmth, but feared vulnerability. This peculiar relationship gave Burt profound insight into a figure few truly understood. Though rarely discussed, his brief comments about Hoover hint at the mysteries buried in powerful hearts. The tale then shifts to Rock Hudson, a beloved idol whose image masked private pain. Burt met Rock during a joint film project in the early 1950s. They quickly bonded, escaping public glare through desert road trips filled with laughter and intimacy. Rock always lived with the fear of being exposed, a fear tragically realized years later. When Rock succumbed to AIDS in 1985, the world finally confronted his secret truth. Burt mourned not just a friend, but a man who loved deeply, but lived cautiously. Their parting wasn't born of betrayal, but of a society unwilling to accept their truth. Even decades later, Burt would recall their love with a bittersweet mix of pride and regret. Then came the unexpected name of Ricky Nelson, the youthful sensation of the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. Nearly 20 years separated Ricky and Burt when they first met in the 1960s. Their connection defied norms, rooted in mutual fascination and emotional exploration. Though history overlooked their bond, Burt never forgot the quiet warmth they once shared. While Ricky was making the difficult leap from child star to adult performer, a brief yet powerful connection formed between them, with Ricky viewing Burt as both a guide and a safe harbor. Rather than prolong something delicate, Burt, in his gentle nature, stepped away, believing Ricky needed space to truly grow into his own identity. Years later, Burt spoke of Ricky with warmth, describing him as a young man who sang like the wind and kissed like someone who'd never had permission to feel desire. Though it didn't last long, that fleeting bond etched itself into Burt's memory as a tender chapter of innocence and vulnerability. And then, there was Marlon Brando. Perhaps the most emotionally charged relationship Burt ever had. Brando, wild, where Burt was reserved, erratic where Burt was grounded, ignited a passion that could not be ignored. They first crossed paths during a glittering Hollywood gathering in the late 1950s, each a titan in his own right but vastly different in presence. The energy between them was electric, impossible to contain, and equally impossible to sustain. Brando's fierce mind, his appetite for intense debate, and the magnetism he exuded swept Burt into a whirlwind that defied easy explanation. Burt once admitted that Brando could shatter his composure with nothing more than a single glance. Their time together spanned several years, an emotional roller coaster of highs and stormy lows. But in the end, their volatile chemistry and the need for secrecy unraveled what they had built. Even so, Burt held Brando in high regard, always acknowledging him as someone who pushed him beyond his emotional boundaries. These hidden love stories offered a glimpse into the soul of the man behind the tough Hollywood persona. Far beneath the surface of a movie icon lived a person who gave his heart with intensity, even when he had to do it in the dark. When Burt chose to speak his truth in his final years, it wasn't about shocking the world. It was about finding peace within himself. Instead of tarnishing his reputation, these revelations added unexpected layers to the legacy he left behind. They made him more reachable, more vulnerable, more real. They showed that fame doesn't shield anyone from longing, heartbreak, or the need to hide. On October 20th, 1994, at 4:50 a.m., in his Los Angeles apartment, Burt Lancaster quietly passed away after suffering a third heart attack. He was 80 years old, leaving behind both an extraordinary film career and an intimate story few had known. According to his wishes, his remains were scattered beneath an old oak tree in Westwood Memorial Park, marked only by a small plaque with his name and dates. No public ceremony was held, no spotlight shone on the farewell. But the legacy he carved out, in cinema, in activism, and in the private bravery of loving on his own terms, still echoes today. His journey reflects the courage to fight for justice and the quiet strength to love without applause. Burt Lancaster's life was a mosaic of brilliance, resistance, heartbreak, and deep human emotion. He wasn't just a screen idol, he was a layered soul who bore the cost of truth in a time of silence. Looking back, we see a man who didn't just perform roles, he lived them, with every beat of joy and sorrow etched into his story. Before you go, just think about this. How many legends have lived entire lives behind a curtain, hiding truths we're only just beginning to uncover? Burt Lancaster's story isn't just about Hollywood, it's about the quiet battles, the hidden love, and the bravery it takes to live authentically in a world that demands masks. If Burt's story moved you, made you reflect, or even just left you in awe of old Hollywood secrets, let me know in the comments.